Hello, everyone. Morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this week's session of DappRadar Market Movers. My name is Pedro, and today we'll be discussing one of our favorite topics. We come back to talk about and discuss blockchain games. And to talk about it, I want to welcome today's guest, Boris Ribo, part of our research team at DappRadar, and an avid gamer himself. How are you doing today, Boris?
Hello, Pedro. Always glad to be here. Always glad to be back. Unfortunately, last week we had to take a small break from market movers, and I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah, we take a bit of break, but we're back, and yeah, it's always good to have you back. Before we start, I want to remind everyone here that, as always, we'll be recording the session, so you can listen to this or any of our previous shows on that Radar's YouTube channel, where you will also find hundreds of educational videos and market updates. Okay, so without further ado, it's not a secret that the crypto industry is under a high duress period, whether it's the price of Bitcoin plummeting, the collapse of the Terra ecosystem, and more recently, the rumors about potential liquidation of giant centralized finance platforms BlockFi, Celsius, Voyager, and the insolvency problem that 3 Arrow Capital's, one of the most important VCs in the industry, is facing. The panorama is a bit bleak for the industry. However, blockchain games have become a light at the end of the tunnel for the industry and had become that blockchain vertical, aside different from DeFi and NFTs, that has resisted better this bear market. Actually, the number of unique active wallets, of gaming unique active wallets connected to blockchain games, have decreased 5% to higher decreases in the overall industry and DeFi and NFTs again. And I want to start a discussion, Boris, asking you, what do you think are the reasons behind this resistance that blockchain games have become into that bear market? Why are blockchain games resisting the bear market better?
Well, personally, I would say not only blockchain games, but games in general. I mean, it goes back to human psychology that no matter if it's uh, feast or famine, people would always want diversion, especially in times when things are tough and things are tough all over. People always want to entertain themselves. If people remember back in 2008 when we suffered a major crisis, video game companies in that time were also the ones that were weathering the storm. During COVID crisis, when a lot of the markets and many industries were suffering, video game and entertainment companies were one of the ones that were weathering the bear market very well. And I think this is no exception because even in times where we see entire ecosystems collapse, people still find gaming very enjoyable. And I think um, it just goes to show to when essentially a lot of the video games on the blockchain started being developed, we saw detracting opinions saying this, this is all just a pyramid scheme. People are only there because of the crypto tokens, and as soon as the tokens collapse, everybody's going to go away and nobody's going to play in these games anymore. But this is actually defies that thesis because despite the fact that a lot of the underlying tokens have plummeted in value, we still saw a consistent and a marginal decrease in users, which just goes to show that the games are designed from the ground up to be an entertaining venture.
Yeah, which is probably the most bullish aspect what we are seeing now in blockchain games, right? How the top blockchain games, talking about the top 20 or 30 blockchain games that are consistently attracting over 5,000 daily unique active wallets on average, they are maintaining their levels. And despite the fact that their tokens are down hard, if we take a look, for example, at DeFi Kingdoms, UWell, its native token, it's down 99%, which is ridiculous. 99%, and it still has over 12,000 daily unique active wallets. Um, Crazy Defense Heroes, also like Tower, which is the native token, has decreased in price 95%, and still one of the most played games. So I think it makes sense to start thinking that finally we're seeing that blockchain games are generating true engagement through the perspective of entertaining people, which is basically their main objective, right? Games in general are made to entertain people. That's the main objective of games. And at some point, especially the first blockchain games that so liked, were not precisely entertaining themselves. They were more like mining games that basically just rewarded players for their playing time. And now we're seeing a shift in the trend, also from play to earn to play and earn, which is something that we really like to see that.
I would say,
And yeah,
sorry, go on.
no, no, no,
Uh,
go.
no, I was going to say that if we go down the list of the most popular games, I mean, we still see Splinterlands that has 350,000 daily active wallets despite the bear market. And just going by the numbers, that is a very impressive amount. Just to compare it to traditional games media for people who are saying that, oh no, like these are not real games. Just for reference, if this game was on Steam, it would be the third most played game right now by daily active players. So it's got a massive following.
Yeah, and also talking about Splinterlands, for example, you see how these blockchain games are becoming serious project with long-term roadmaps. And actually, it's a good point. Let's talk a bit about Splinterlands because something interesting happened in this ecosystem. Actually, 48 months in a row, which is almost a year. That's talking about consistency. uh, Splinterlands was the most played blockchain game in our rankings. In May, it attracted over 350,000 daily unique active wallets on average, which shrank a bit, but only 3% compared to April's numbers. So again, it's showing how blockchain games are defying the bear trend. And something significant happened in the roadmap of Splinterlands because uh, they released the validator node licenses. And this is a very important step towards decentralization. Basically, what does that mean is that players will be able to hold nodes that will be approving all the transactions, all the gaming transactions on the Splinterlands ecosystem, which in the future will rely on a delegated proof of stake consensus mechanism, and owners of these node licenses will basically be driving all the decentralization aspect of the Splinterlands ecosystem. And I don't know, Boris, if you have some numbers about these validator nodes, how many were there, or how much money did Splinterlands gain from this sale?
Oh, on May 26th, the first round of 2,000 validator nodes sold out completely in the first 15 minutes. They burned over 14.5 million SPS, and that netted them around 4 million US dollars at the time that they were burned. And naturally, all
Um,
that money did not directly go into the developers' pockets, but was allocated to the game's DAO in order for the community then to, in the future, allocate those resources to the development of the game.
Yeah, super important, right? It's not about, yeah, we as developers are becoming richer. Yeah, they could easily pocket like 4 millions, as you said, but no, like they truly believe in the future of the game, so they allocate and commit this 4 million to the game's DAO, reinforcing the decentralization aspect of the game. And also, it's interesting to see how the tokenomics work for this project. They burn 14 million, you said 14 million SPS tokens, giving it a deflationary aspect and basically making the token more scarce and making it more valuable, really reducing the potential sell pressure that the token could face in an event in later in the future. So again, like it's very positive to see how these games are becoming full ecosystems and how these games are retaining their audiences. And talking about gaming ecosystems, another important gaming ecosystem that is really worth talking about is Immutable X. You want to talk about Immutable X, Boris?
Yeah,
Play
sure.
down a bit.
So Immutable X is a layer two solution for Illuvium, and
Oh,
recently
for Ethereum, right?
yeah,
For
yeah, for Ethereum.
Ethereum.
Yes, sorry, for Ethereum, and it's closely linked to Illuvium, which is an open world RPG. From the 2nd to the 4th June, they had a land sale where they sold 20,000 plots in total, generating just over 4,000 Ethereum. So the exact numbers are 4,018 Ethereum and worth 32 million US dollars at the time, completely selling out. And this will be the main assets for people to enjoy and play the game. Previously, this game in Q1, it was still in beta or beta, depending how you like to pronounce it, was still in beta form. And so only a handful amount of players had access to it. Whether now the game is completely going live, and we're going to see how this will shape the blockchain gaming landscape in the future.
Yeah.
Go on.
No. So yeah, just for me, it's also speaks volumes about how people think about these games. And Illuvium, to be fair, is one of the most hyped and expected blockchain games. Some people label it as a AAA game, and for those of you who don't know what a AAA game, a AAA game is basically a terminology that was basically coined in the last decade for games that get a lot of attention from the media, but most importantly, they got a lot of resources to develop high-end graphics, interesting playing mechanics, and so on. So we're on the brink of seeing a AAA game in Illuvium. It's definitely worth watching the trailer and see how the gaming mechanics could look like, and you could see why the hype. And even in a bear market where people are struggling to get liquidity out of their pockets, the game generated 72 million at the time of the sale, which is an impressive number.
To add to that, yeah, the term, if I remember, was in 2010s when I first started hearing the term, and it was borrowed from the film industry at the time, meaning any project that basically had a funding above 1 million. That's pretty much the AAA uh, uh, sphere. But I'm not sure how relevant that is because most AAA games today have a development cycle of multiple years. I think the average now is about 5 years, many, many million in terms of funding. So yeah, I'm sure that that definition has to be adjusted to inflation. But going back to Illuvium, the reason why we mentioned Immutable X is because Illuvium will run on Immutable X in order to save for gas, not to cast shade on what happened to other side, but one of the major criticism of that land sale is that many people were unable to mint their lands because of just the exorbitant minting fees that happened on Ethereum and basically devolved into a gas war. This is done essentially to avoid the same debacle and make sure that people pay, comparatively speaking, $20 for a mint as opposed to 4,000 as been seen with other deeds.
Yeah, I mean, running games on layer 2 solutions like Immutable makes total sense. Like, if you think about any time, let's take the example of Illuvium. Illuvium is an open RPG, but the game mechanics consist in battles inspired by Pokemon. So, for those of you who played Pokemon Stadium, you can imagine Pokemons battling. So each time you go idle between turn and turn, it's basically a transaction. So each turn could incur in gas fees. So this is the importance of layer two solution, right? Where it optimizes all the gas fees, basically making it non-existent. And it's also laying a blueprint on how scaling solutions and sidechain will become the preferred option to host any type of blockchain games. And a part of Illuvium, Immutable X is going to host interesting games, right?
So far, yes, they are also hosting Gods Unchained, Guild of Guardians, and Ember Sword, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Ember Sword is, well, Gods Unchained, again, one of the most popular blockchain games already. It is a trading card game that it's also doing well, even in the bear market. The game is doing well. And Ember Sword is also really interesting. It will be an open world metaverse project, like type of virtual world game. It has a really interesting tokenomics and how they define NFTs in that virtual world is really worth taking a look and really worth considering it in taking, well, yeah, having it on our radar for the upcoming months. But it's not only about Immutable X that where we are seeing rising gaming ecosystem. Another important gaming ecosystem that for some point of time has been way under the radar is Gala Games. And Gala Games is slowly building a blockchain game empire. The Gala Games ecosystem already has a couple of popular games live. One is called Townstar, which is basically a farming resource game where people create farms so yeah, they create villages to farm resources. The game mechanics are really well thought because you compete with other players during 1 week, but all the rules reset. So basically, each week it gives opportunity to new players to get on board, and it's easier to catch more experienced players. Of course, it also depends a lot of on the type and the level of the NFTs you have, but it's a bit thinking about how to make it more fair to especially to the newcomers. And the other one that is also really interesting for some people is Spider Tanks. Spider Tanks is more dynamic battle game, which is also really worth taking a look. It also has a lot of NFTs already, and besides the gaming aspect, which is really fun, um, there are people really profiting with this type of NFTs. But besides these, there are a lot of upcoming games in the Gala Games ecosystem. Do you have something on top of your mind, Boris?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you want to get an overview of what happened and what Gala Games has in store, they recently had their own mini convention, like Blizzard has, well, had its BlizzCon. Same way with Galaverse, they hosted their Galaverse convention at Malta from 6th to the 8th of June. And if you Google it, I'm sure you will be able to see um, a lot of the announcements that they made at the convention. One of the bigger announcements is their partnership with Epic Games to develop Grit, which is a cowboy themed game, sort of like an arena shooter from the looks of it, on the Epic Games Store. Now, this has bigger implications, naturally. First of all, as many of you would know, that in the gaming battle of publishers, we have on one side we have Steam, which has been pretty much the open sea for games. Steam previously released games like Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Team Fortress, and many other, and then transitioned to being a purely a marketplace where a lot of indie developers go to have their games. But when blockchain games well, yeah, basically blockchain games became a fledgling market, Steam basically said no and banned any games based on blockchain involving NFTs, crypto, or any of that part of the market. On the other hand, you have Epic Games, and Epic Games are, well, too many of you probably know them as the developers behind the hit Fortnite. That's basically all the kids are playing these days. But previously, they were known for making the Unreal Engine, which powers, I would say, a good chunk of today's industry, and they're leasing it even for the new Witcher game, Batman games from Warner Brothers. Basically, I think it's like the universal Swiss Army knife. But most importantly, what Epic Games were doing is that they, unlike Steam, decided to take a very daring bet and support blockchain industry and blockchain games. So if you want to play them, any AAA development games, you're gonna have to go to this to the Epic.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned Batman, oh my god, that trilogy of Batman Asylum was, oh my god, one of my favorites. But yeah, Epic Games is really important name in the traditional gaming industry. So it's great to see already a blockchain project of the size of Gala having its own game on a traditional gaming marketplace like the Epic Games Store. And the outlook for Gala does not stop here. They have announced exciting partnerships like the one with Battlestar Galactica, which is partnering basically with Universal Pictures. They will launch Project Saturn, which will be a Battlestar Galactica theme Web3 game running in this Gala game ecosystem. But also, let's remember that Gala has already partnered with AMC to develop Walking Dead Empires, which is a Web3 surviving game and one that really, really looks good. And on addition, Gala Games will be home to Forever Winter, a horror shooter game currently developed by Fondog. And Fondog is a game studio composed with some of the big names that have developed really important franchises like The Witcher, which is considered, well, The Witcher 3, which is considered one of the best games in recent memory. There is also Last Expedition with developers that participate in developing Halo and Call of Duty. So you start to see the names and you start to see the partnership, the branding, and all the ecosystem. And there is no reason to not be bullish with Gala Games. And to put the cherry on the top, Gala Games will host Mirandus. And in my opinion, Mirandus is one of those games that we're still a bit far from launching. Probably we won't see nothing about Mirandus until summer of next year. But Mirandus is going to drastically change the way we see blockchain games. Mirandus is an open world RPG game based on the medieval. So think about World of Warcraft, but on the blockchain with all the gold that you could mine will be a cryptocurrency called Materium, and all the avatars of ogres, knights, and so on. They are called exemplars in the Mirandus ecosystem, and it's going to be huge. And personally, it's one of the most anticipated games that I'm really, really looking forward to get my hands on. So we have talked about how the most important blockchain games have maintained their player base despite their native tokens plummeting, basically losing 90% of their value. Then we have talked about a couple of important gaming ecosystems in Immutable X and Gala Games, but there are other trends forming in the gaming space. And one is probably one that you have already heard about, but why don't you tell us more about Move to Earn, Boris?
Yeah, talk about gamers being sweaty. This is a different kind of sweaty.
Yeah,
Because the traditional stereotype is gamers are just fat slobs who eat nothing but chips. So this is basically a complete inversion of that. Is um, it's a combination of tokenomics, NFTs, and basically keeping yourself in shape. The major breakthrough with this kind of technology was Steppen. Steppen. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
yeah,
But
Steph.
yeah. So in any case, what you basically do is you buy an NFT of your favorite sneaker, and there's different tiers of there's like sneakers for joggers, sneakers for casual walkers, and then there's sneakers for extreme sprinters. And basically, upon purchase of this sneaker, you commit yourself to you have to run around a certain distance within a certain time, and if you do so, you are rewarded with tokens that you can then convert, spend, and whatnot. So this is why it's step to earn, and it has amassed since its launch now 2 million of I think last month of 2 million monthly users, and on their website they have basically millions of calories burned, and they have 262 unique active wallets that participate with the app daily. What's I think very interesting about it is that the technology is done in a very smart way, in the sense you can't trick it just by going on a treadmill or just sitting at your home and just pacing away from one corner of your room to another. You actually have to go outside because it registers. um, this may be slightly controversial, but it registers where your home base is, and then you actually physically have to leave your house, walk around, jog around, and then that records your progress. And it's actually good and healthy for yourself because we've seen a lot of people were cooped up in the last 2 years, and I think this is a good way to promote personal health and also earn a little something in the meantime.
Yeah, I agree. And probably you're wondering why move to earn as games. And essentially, what these move to earn games are doing is embedding a gaming element to the nature of their platform. So, for example, you mentioned Stepen that you need to buy a sneaker NFT. So you have like in games you have like stamina. So you're only allowed to run for a certain time, but the more you run, the more points, experience you earn, and of course tokens you earn, and you can use these tokens to level up your sneakers, and leveling up your sneakers allow you to get more stamina and so on. So in the end, it's truly a psychologically gaming element that these platforms are embedding to their offerings, which is interesting to see. And it's not only about step, and there are other good a bunch of move to earn projects rising up in other blockchains. One, for example, that I really like is Genopets. And Genopets is a Solana based move to earn project. It's inspired in Pokemon. A lot of games are inspired in Pokemon, actually. So there are Genopets monster that are also NFTs and are available on the secondary market for 50 Sol, or around 300 no, sorry, $3,000. Yeah, so the entry barrier is not that cheap, but it's really really entertaining. They basically, what you need to do in Genopets is basically as similar to Pokemon Go. You need to move around, well, basically your neighborhood, and trying to level up your Genopet. And leveling up your Genopet could result in a higher price when you sell the NFT in the secondary market. But we also see Step Up in Avalanche, which is really, really similar to Stepen. Dot Moves, a multi-chain move to earn dApp that runs on Ethereum, Binance, and Polygon. And basically, in Dot Moves, you battle with people, and the mobile is recording your dancing or football trick skills. So again, it's moving, but again, it's gaming. And finally, one that I really like is Olive X. And Olive X is not a single game, is an ecosystem consisting of three different game dApps: Dustland, Zombies Run, and Limpo Squad. Of course, Zombies Run is about running, Limpo Squad is doing squats and other type of aerobics exercises. But Dustland is really, really interesting. The project is backed up by Animoca brands, and it's focused on develop a unique user experience through fitness gamification and augmented reality. Basically, you put on your headset, you start running or cycling, which is also a great advantage of this game that allows you to cycle. And the game is telling you a story that you need to run, for example, from a stampede, or cycle from monsters and so on. So you're telling yourself a story while you are doing exercise, and it's one of the most intriguing concepts for me in Web3 in recent months. So yeah, another aspect, just how to be bullish about games. And maybe before closing out, we can talk about money, which is we have been mentioning this trend for a while. Basically, since the end of last year, we noticed how the amount of capital invested in blockchain games has not stopped. But Boris, perhaps you can tell us more about these particular trends of VCs pouring money into blockchain games.
Yeah, so one last thing I wanted to cap off the previous topic with is that I would say, again, not financial advice, but if you're interested or perhaps even slightly intrigued to pursue or check out any of the dApps we mentioned, please do, because the prices are for native tokens are all uh, well, no other way of putting it, but they are essentially depreciating, which means the barrier to entry is also getting lower, which makes it a lot more affordable for people for trying them out, as opposed to because Solana at the time of writing was $29 USD. And so the cheaper the token is, the cheaper it is for people to buy an NFT, become part of the ecosystem, run, joke, keep yourself healthy. So just something to think about. But on to the next topic. When it comes to investments, again, as I started this whole topic previously, is that regardless of how or in what state the economy is, people always want a diversion and people always want to have themselves entertained. This for this reason that a lot of people, probably a lot smarter than us, decided, hey, this is a good time to start investing because everything is cheap now comparatively to what was a year ago. So we can essentially place our money for people to start developing blockchain games, starting developing infrastructure, developing guilds and uh, media and NFTs and other metaverse projects. And to the tune of so far, just in this half year, we already had 4.9 billion invested, and we are projected to until the end of the year to invest 11.5 billion. Now, in comparison to the previous year, in the whole year of 2029, we invested just 4 billion. So we already beat the mark of last year and we're set to double it by the end of this year. So just as a an overview of the market, we saw 600 million being committed by A16Z to create the Games Fund 1, which is a branch that will focus on boosting game studios and infrastructure in the blockchain. We saw a 725 million raised by Dapper Labs to expand and develop further the Flow ecosystem. They have partnered with brands like NBA, NFL, La Liga, UFC, and they're basically the ones the OGs who created the game CryptoKitty. So they are veterans, they know what they're doing, and we had all this money so far. As I said, the 4.9 billion has been committed to building guilds and incubators, building games, and a majority of which went to games and metaverse projects. A third went to infrastructure projects. 15% went to investment firms, and then a small percentage went into developing NFTs and media.
Yeah,
Overall, yeah, sorry, go on.
no, like just taking a look at the numbers, it's really positive to see that BCs are constantly trying to get their hands into blockchain games. Um, it's a trend that has not stopped despite the unfavorable market conditions, right? So, and last year we got a record amount of capital invested into blockchain games, which was 4 billion, right? And just in 5 or 6 months this year, we already surpassed that number, surpassing 5 billion already. Well, you mentioned for 4.9, but I'm pretty sure that by now, the time of recording, we have surpassed 5 billion. And at this rate, we will basically be almost nearing 12 billion, which is triple from last year. And this will give more tools and basically ammunition for the blockchain gamings that are currently developing. to deliver better products to us gamers.
Yeah, and since we already saw developers from The Witcher, well, unfortunately for CD Projekt Red, they had a lot of people leave the company after the development of Cyberpunk and Witcher. Now they're starting their own companies and going to greener pastures as well. We had people, as you mentioned previously, from Halo who are also part of Fundog. So we see a
Yeah.
lot of like true hardcore talent that came that basically developed one of the best projects in the traditional media, moving over to this fledgling industry to make the mark, doing something, basically being pioneers and doing something completely new. So the future, in terms of it, despite us being in a very precarious market right now, the future for games, I would say, could not be brighter in terms of these developments.
Yeah, which can be another reason to be bullish on blockchain games. The, let's say, the amount of talent, the exodus of talent that we are seeing from traditional gaming companies into blockchain gaming companies, it's also outstanding. Like, it paints a really, really positive outlook for this blockchain vertical. All right, so why don't we stop a bit here and ask our audience if there is anyone that wants to step up in the discussion or has any question that wants to ask us. Don't be shy, guys, and jump in to discuss with us or ask any question that you might have. But in the meantime, Boris, we mentioned a few trends, but there is another one that it's maybe gaining traction, and it's Avalanche. And in previous months, Avalanche was already making a bit of noise in the gaming space because of a game that called Crabata, which was basically X Infinity on Avalanche, to be fair. And it was leading the GameFi movement inside this blockchain. And it was attracting around 5 to 8,000 daily unique active wallets, although it has decreased a bit in the last few weeks. However, there are a few, well, not a few, but at least a couple of games that look really interesting on Avalanche as well. You want to talk about them, or do you want me to go through them?
No, no, no. I actually the one that caught my eye and actually got uh introduced to this game completely by accident where I was doing the last DApp report, which is Shrap. They launched one of their NFT chains because I haven't seen this type of NFT collection before. They were essentially selling skins or characters for their upcoming FPS shooter called Shrapnel. And what took me aside is because, again, I'm a big Call of Duty fan and just generally like playing shooters and whatnot. And I saw this like, oh wow, this is exactly like a lot of the major companies are doing. Hey, like you like a particular character, there you go. There's a fancy skin for that. So they already, I would say, pre-selling NFT skins where you buy your character and he's got his certain look or their look or her look, whichever you feel like, whichever character speaks to you. They're selling them now on OpenSea, and this is essentially this game is going to be a traditional FPS shooter. It's going to be an open world and PvP, and they're slanting to have the first alpha towards the fourth quarter of this year. And is by its standards, you can also check out their official website. But it's going to be, in terms of again finances and development, it's going to be a TPS FPS shooter, something that akin to used to from Ubisoft, Activision Blizzard, or any other AAA company. Any
Yeah, just a parenthesis here because you mentioned that the NFTs of Shrapnel, I always struggle to say that one, Shrapnel, are on OpenSea and are trading on ETH. But so the assets are going to be on ETH, but the playing mechanics and all the utility and functionalities are going to be running on Avalanche. So again, we see how a scaling blockchain, a scaling network like Avalanche is going to be very friendly to host blockchain games.
Yeah, and essentially, you play in this open world game. The way developers described it is a little bit like PUBG, where you're in with RPG mechanics. We're in this giant world, everybody's competing together, but you're also earning resources, as you do in most games these days. And these resources are also come in forms of NFTs, where they'd be armor, weapons, power ups, what have you. And
Yeah,
yeah, one last thing is that I was just looking at OpenSea now. So the collection launched on June 9th for the operators. And yeah, the purchase price was 0.05 ETH, which is around $60.
yeah. I mean, we're talking about PUBG. If we compare Shrapnel to PUBG, one of the most popular mobile games, we're already going into the next level. So you mentioned previously that Splinterland would be the third most played game in
Steam.
Steam. Then yeah, and then we now comparing Shrapnel, upcoming game, with PUBG. I mean, again, another reason why games are making gains while birds are running the market. So yeah, it's really good to see that. And there is one other Avalanche game, right?
Yeah, Domi Online. It's an MMORPG or Mamorphiger if you come from an older generation. It's inspired by games like RuneScape. Again, if you're from an older generation of gamers like me, you probably remember playing Ultima Online and then RuneScape, mining Jill for GFs. It's a game based on Ethereum and BNB, apart from Avalanche. And the alpha for this game is planted to be in the third quarter of this year. So essentially, in this game, like many MMORPGs, you have your classes, you have your professions, you move around in the world and collect resources and battle other players. On top of that,
It's
there's also upcoming similar game. It's called Ragnarok, an NFT-based metaverse RPG. Um, to this date, it's one of the more anticipated projects on Avalanche, and it's also launched its own NFT collection. And currently, the floor price sits at 0.49 ETH.
okay. So Avalanche also raising the hand, and probably we'll be talking more. Hopefully, we'll be talking more about Avalanche games in upcoming market rumors. But for now, I think there is no further question. Um, so, Boris, you want to make any final remark on today's discussion?
Myself personally, I'm excited with this gala venture, joining forces together with Epic. I'll be honest, I wasn't a very big supporter of Epic, particularly because I not a big fan of Tim Sweeney and the way they develop games in the future. But he does have a very core understanding of how the game industry works, and I think some of his statements that he made that Steam is essentially becoming too centralized for the gaming environment, and to this day they're the biggest platform. And the fact that at least Epic is trying to do something against it, and then trying to, at least if it's just purely reactionary, in the sense that, okay, if Steam doesn't do it, we're do it. If Steam doesn't do it, then we're going. No, if Steam doesn't do it, then we're going to do it. And at least they're doing it something that's completely unheard of. And personally, and this is my subjective point, I think this is going to bite Steam in the long run, because as this industry is taking off, Gabe Newell so far said, "That's it. We're not going to support this industry. When this industry eventually going to develop and blossom, and it will, because technology only goes so far in one direction. It's always going to becoming better, faster, more efficient, and so are blockchain games eventually. And then Steam, I think, is going to resign their policy, and they're going to accept video games in the video blockchain based games in the future. But I think by that point they will have a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Steam. It's something that is always happening in the industry, right? First they ignore you, then they fight you, and then finally they want to join you. But this is probably something that is going to happen to Steam. But yeah, I mean, Gala Games definitely one of the most exciting gaming ecosystem to keep an eye on, and you would already get your hands on either with Townstar, Spider Tanks, or simply
Grit
purchasing. Sorry,
or Grit. Grit. I
or
personally I was very very excited for Grit, to be honest. Big fan of Red Dead Redemption and think this brings the same vibes.
oh yeah, 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 I mean, Red Dead Redemption, one of the best games in probably last decade. Um, but also you can starting taking positions like maybe you are a fan of the Walking Dead. You can start preparing to be part of this exciting survivor game, or maybe you want to be part of Miranda's. You can buy an exemplar. So there are a lot of ways to get involved in the space. And for me, my final remark before closing the space is how resilient the top games are. And if we look at the DappRadar rankings, if we look at the top 40 blockchain games, we see blockchain brawlers on Wax attracting 10,000 daily, well, sorry, 10,000 unique active wallets. And you start climbing up in the rankings, you see prospectors attracting almost 14,000. And then you go to Gods on Chain, and then you go to Metamon on BNB, and you start to seeing that it's not only about the upcoming gaming ecosystems. There are already like a lot of games in Wax, some interesting games in BNB that they are keeping their audiences engaged despite the decreasing prices in their native token. So for me, this is also as bullish as it can get. But time has run out, and as always, I would like to give a big thank to all of you for being active members of our community. And I would like to remind you that each week we have different sessions where of DappRadar meets where Ian talks down with relevant blockchain projects in his AMA weekly events. And of course, each week at the same time, market movers discussing different trends or topic affecting the crypto market. And also don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and social media channels on Twitter, Discord, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube. And that would be all for today, friends. I wish you a lovely evening and have an amazing weekend. And bye bye.
All the best to everyone. Have a good day.